Mount Teide, 3,718 meters high, is the third tallest volcano in the world, rising 7,500 meters from the seafloor, and it's the highest point in Spain. My girlfriend and I climbed it in April 2022, and not everything went to plan. I had intended to make a YouTube video of it, but I never got around to putting it together because it just didn't feel right. However, now that I'm beginning to get the hang of editing, I've cut something together based on the content that I collected. So stay tuned and witness the experience that we had on the side of Teide. It's also just a 4-hour flight from the UK, and having climbed the 3 tallest hills in the UK, Scafell Pike in England, Ben Nevis in Scotland and Snowdon in Wales, my girlfriend and I set about looking for our next weekend adventure. The nice thing about the hikes in the UK is that they all start at around about sea level, meaning that the hike is broadly the full height of the hill. And for us, we wanted to do something similar, where you climbed the full height of the mountain in a sensible period of time. I'm fully aware that you could start in Bangladesh and walk to the summit of Everest, but that would take far too long, and we only had a weekend. So this led us to Teide, specifically Ruta 040, described as such because you start at 0 meters of elevation, you climb from specifically Playa del Socorro up the side of Teide, you travel south to the summit and you gain 4,000 meters of elevation. It's 28 kilometers to the top with an average grading of about 8%. At some points it was ridiculously steep, as you'll see in some of the footage that I captured. And you can turn around at the top and walk back down, hence 040. The record time for this is just over 6 hours, which is frankly obscene for 56 kilometers. We weren't racing, so we packed a bag, 8 litres of water, food, sun hat, sun cream, etc. And we started on the beach at an appropriate time to get to the top and back down to the last cable car, which would take us down to the taxi driver that we'd arranged, and then he would take us back to our car on Playa del Socorro. The next time you'll see me will be me back in April 22 when we were beginning the hike. Beginning of the hike, we're on a beautiful black sand beach at -7 meters of elevation, 3,800 to go. We've just set off from Playa del Socorro, a lovely black sand beach. Just show you down here with the surfers on it. Not sure if you can see those guys. Cool helicopter goes past. Anyway, we've done about 42 meters and we've got a lot further to go. Keep you posted. So we're at 500 meters. Unsurprisingly, I'm absolutely drenched, but we've got the 8 litres, so I'll have a litre and then keep going. But so far so good, it's lovely. Recommend it if anybody fancies the unnecessarily long hike in somewhat warm conditions, then they should definitely come here. We've just made it now to 1,500 meters, which is a little under halfway. We're doing about 500 meters an hour. I'll spin it around so you can see. Yeah, we're out of focus, but anyway. Yeah, it's beautiful. Having a good walk, is it?
Refueling on berries.
Refueling on berries. Here you go. Just above the clouds. Amazing. Onwards and upwards. 2,000 meters, 4 hours in. We're doing good, we're doing good. Here you go. I'll just show you. Just up there. So we have to sort of walk around it along here, and then I think we're going to head all the way up to there. Here's the first sort of indication that things aren't quite going right. I have pointed to the top of the mountain and I've said, I think that we're going up there. I didn't recognise it at the time, but I think because we were ascending reasonably quickly and we had or at least I was carrying a heavy bag, I'd sweated a lot. And although I was trying to consume as much water as I could, I clearly wasn't taking on enough. Coupled with the fact of the ever-changing altitude, we were punching through 500 metres an hour. It was a reasonable rate of ascent. It was the first signs really of early altitude sickness, and it did get progressively worse as we worked our way up the mountain. Okay, update. We're at 3,000 metres, 6 hours 21. There's a big long flat bit just down there. But we're nearly there, on our way to the top. How you doing?
Struggling.
Nearly there. Come on, you can do it. Final push. Unfortunately, I didn't really capture much on the camera at all from this point on, and it was all Instagram stories. The reason for that was I was really struggling between these somewhat happy Instagram stories that I was sharing with moving. I was having to put my head on a rock, and Lizzie was sort of having to push me and really keep me moving. For the prior kind of 5 hours up to 3,000 and 3,500 meters, I'd been way ahead of Lizzie and sort of charging and keeping the two of us going, I suppose. But at around about 3,000 meters, honestly, my headache was just raging, and I was really struggling to move up the mountainside. So Lizzie was doing a great job of just like shoving me and being like, look, come on, the quickest way down the mountain is actually just to get to the very top, which is why we continued on up to the top. We've had a bit of a nightmare. We walked up, we're at 3,600, the volcano, and we were going to get the cable car down. I was told it shuts at 6, but it's actually shut now, so we've got to walk. Luckily, we don't have to walk all the way. We only have to walk down to about 2,500, but it's not what I want to be doing now. Hey-o. Grit and bear it. The reason that we had arrived at the top of the mountain at 5:30 is because we'd been advised by the cable car operator that the last descent was at 6 p.m. I'll put the email on screen now and I'll blur out the name of the person that told me. Understandably, we were quite concerned because we'd burned through all of our food and drunk our 8 litres of water, and we didn't really have any solution other than walking right the way back down. Our assumption was that our taxi driver was going to leave because we weren't going to be able to meet him at the time that we had agreed, and there was no phone signal. So at this point, things were looking pretty bleak. However, we decided that the most sensible thing for us to do would be to basically take a bit of a shortcut down the mountainside to the point at which we'd arranged to meet the taxi driver and simply hope that we'd get phone signal. Thank you for your concerned messages. Lizzie, how you doing? You're not enjoying life? Oh dear. It has been a nice walk, just a bit of a shit ending. I think we've come from there, and our car's probably there. Persuade the taxi man waiting for us to hang about. Bastard. Okay, so we've walked down to 2,350 from 3,600 where we were. We've been walking for 10 hours. I think Lizzie's having a lovely time. To be fair, it's unpleasant. We hadn't bargained to walk for 10 hours, but we've got to take it in and go enjoy the nature, you know? So yeah, there's a little man in a taxi. I don't know if he's little, but there is a taxi down there. And we'll get in that and get some tapas or something. It's very doubtful that the taxi driver that picked us up that day will be watching this video, but on the off chance, massive thanks to you, mate. You really saved our bacon. We would have really struggled to have had a comfortable evening on the mountainside because we had no water, no method of melting snow. Massive thanks to that guy for waiting the 2 hours that it took for us to get from the summit at 3,600, slightly below the summit, to the car park at 2,300. When we got back to our hotel, we kicked back, had some tapas and slept like absolute troopers. When I woke up the next day, I was feeling pretty groggy and I took a COVID test and I actually had COVID. So to this day, I still don't know if it was altitude sickness or if it was COVID, or more likely a combination of the two. What happened about the cable car misinformation? Well, I emailed back the cable car operator and they apologised and they refunded our tickets. Would I recommend the hike? Absolutely. It was a beautiful hike up the side of the mountain. There was actually loads of wildlife. You kind of ascended through the first 1,000 meters and there was lots of lizards scurrying around, lots of birds. And then as you got higher up, there was some really interesting flowers. The rock formations were really interesting, and the view of Pico Teide as you sort of come into the main flat plateau area just before it is genuinely stunning. So yeah, I definitely recommend doing it. It's certainly achievable. You know, we're not superhumans. We're just people who, you know, regularly exercise and like walks. So it's definitely something I'd recommend. Just make sure you check the cable car times twice, because the first answer might not be right. My next video is probably going to be from my time in Africa in January. I've booked to climb Kilimanjaro, and after that I've got a week-long safari. So I'm hoping to capture a few videos, mostly take pictures, and I'll share something here if it's worthy of sharing. Thanks for watching.